Scooby-Doo is known for a lot of things, one of them being the incredible amount of iterations of the show, trying new styles, adding in new characters, fitting in with the current times, babyfying them, you name it. Scooby-Doo and his meddling group of mystery solvers have done it all. While some of the iterations are a lot more well received than others, a few versions of the franchise often get overlooked and honestly are pretty underrated. That's the case for the version of Scooby-Doo we are taking a look at today. Be Cool Scooby-Doo. Right off the bat, you can easily see the look of the show is drastically different from the more traditional look of these characters, something that the 2006 series Shaggy and Scooby-Doo Get a Clue played with as well. But here it was certainly a lot more drastic. Why was this show overlooked? Why didn't it necessarily connect with fans of the franchise, and what makes it underrated? Today, let's dig into Be Cool Scooby-Doo. If you enjoy the video, you better be cool and subscribe. Let's solve these mysteries.
I present to you man in his most primitive form.
So, Be Cool Scooby-Doo comes to us right off the tails of Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, which is my personal second favorite version of Scooby-Doo behind a pup named Scooby-Doo. I've been covering different Scooby-Doo series here on the channel, like both of those that I just mentioned, and we'll have a look at more later this year as well. And this one coming right after such a more serious and darker in tone show like Mystery Incorporated, Be Cool Scooby-Doo flips to be the complete opposite, both in parts thanks to the landscape of cartoons at the time changing heavily in style, and, you know, it's nice to have a breather sometimes after something as heavy as Mystery Incorporated. But where the show needed to fit in to appeal to a more current audience at the time, it still wanted to keep the DNA of Scooby-Doo alive and well within it, specifically calling back and having fun with old references and personalities lifted from the original 1969 show. A move that, to me, seems like a no-brainer for a decent formula at the time. Fit the modern landscape, but don't lose what made you special in the first place. Something I think a good amount of Scooby-Doo shows have done pretty well, but for some reason Be Cool was treated as anything but cool. As we will explore the show's fate, how it felt pushed aside and seemingly lost in the shuffle of other Scooby-Doo properties, it paints a pretty vivid picture as to why this show has this sadly forgotten aura about it. But come on, how could you ever see this and just forget about it? These character designs are drastically different and I certainly can't forget them. They were all designed to be exaggerated hipster-esque versions of the original designs. This helps play into who these characters are as people in the show, maintaining original personality traits that are tried and true to who they have always been, but offering enough new to give it a nice fresh take in bits and parts, some things more exaggerated and new than others. The visuals being recognizable but clearly different is a good way to look at the characters' personalities in general. The whole Mystery Incorporated crew is back. You have Matthew Lillard voicing Shaggy, Kate Masucci as Velma, Gray Delisle as Daphne, and Frank Welker voicing both Fred and, of course, Scooby-Doo. And we follow them as they travel together over the summer break after high school and try to have a nice, fun time together before they all embark on the rest of their lives. A solid premise for the show that I feel I, as well as a lot of other people, can relate and resonate with. Of course, along the way, the usual Scooby-Doo shenanigans happen. There are mysteries to solve, monsters that derail their journey, and a more modern cartoon sense of comedy that was popular in the mid-2010s on Cartoon Network.
What are you not telling us, Velma? Out with it!
Coming up next, it's Be Cool Scooby-Doo.
Looks like we've got another mystery on our hands.
Along with the whole gang.
It's not surprising to see a new version of Scooby-Doo sometime after a previous iteration, so when Be Cool Scooby-Doo was announced, it wasn't anything too out of the ordinary. It was labeled as a modern comedic twist on the classic property, and was announced over a year before it even premiered alongside other new iterations of classic shows. Now, at this time, a lot of cartoons, especially on Cartoon Network, were adopting the 11-minute segmented runtime, but Be Cool Scooby-Doo would still be at a full 22-minute length for the majority of its 52 episodes. Development on the show had a fresh new outlook for what the final product was going to be. The last Scooby-Doo we did was a little more intense and a little scarier. This new one is much more cartoony and silly. I think people are really going to like it. What we've got so far is really funny. In 2014, we got our first announcement of the show and our first glimpse of the new look of the cast thanks to Warner Bros. And TV Guide magazine. You remember those? Look, I have Pokemon ones from 1999. I'm really cool, I know. But they both partnered up during their San Diego Comic-Con spread to show off the new Scooby-Doo show that was in the works. Overseen by the executive producing of Sam Register before he would eventually become the president of Cartoon Network Studios and Warner Bros. Animation, he's someone who would know the current landscape for cartoons better than most, specifically for that network, seeing things change and evolve over time. But there was this supposed back and forth confusion of where this version of Scooby-Doo would be heading to, seemingly heading to Cartoon Network, but being shown as something coming to Boomerang. And Boomerang will come back into play here in just a bit. But on October 5th, 2015, Be Cool Scooby-Doo would officially premiere on Cartoon Network. Luckily, this show is a pretty easy breezy watch if you're coming off of the Mystery Incorporated series, where here the episodes are, well, episodic. So it really makes no difference how you watch them, which makes the classic feel of a self-containing weekly mystery a fun concept to get behind without the pressure of missing some detail or key story moments. Don't get me wrong, I love all that stuff too, but it's nice when not everything is that way and you can watch a show like this a lot more casually. One thing I love about Scooby-Doo is the chase music. I touched on this a lot more in my A Pup Named Scooby-Doo video, but it's this moment that happens in the show that really sets this classical feeling to the show. Whether it's easing the tension during a spookier moment or just to be even more silly, they're always a fun time in any version of Scooby-Doo. Here in Be Cool Scooby-Doo, they actually bring back the goofiness of it with new songs every chase scene, which at this point hadn't been around for a little bit, at least with lyrics, with What's New Scooby-Doo being the last iteration to feature them back in the early 2000s. The whole Villain of the Week thing is a return to classic Scooby vibes we are used to, most often taking familiar monster designs and having some sort of twist during the reveal, or a theming of the villain being in relation to some other famous works now in the form of a parody, for those who get the references, with some of them being easier to point out than others. It made the whole unmasking part at the end of the mysteries a lot more fun and sometimes surprising, usually with a point for the bad guy doing it rather than a shock twist for no reason. Like I mentioned earlier, the show handles our familiar characters in a way that keeps them true to who they are, but exaggerates and explores more of their character. Fred struggles with being the leader of the group. While it's all mainly played up for comedy, it does give a good look into the psyche of someone dealing with control issues, or at least that's how they're viewed by others, and being responsible for leading this group of people. We see how this weighs on him heavily throughout the series. As far as Shaggy, and I guess Scooby as well, they're kind of like a package deal here, they really boil down to their usual selves, but with more character building of who they already were. They still are scared of things, they still eat a lot, but it feels more like buddies having conversations similar to a buddy comedy that would pair up two funny actors. They have good times, they have their arguments, and they even get to vent and point out the ridiculousness of the lives that they live, especially being constantly chased by the villains specifically. It's a familiar and welcoming dynamic that just adds a little bit of flair to it here and there that I personally really enjoyed. Daphne did have one of the biggest character changes overall, mainly because there was a lot of room here to play with the character. I really loved how Daphne was handled in Mystery Incorporated, how important her character felt, and here Daphne ends up being the character with the most personality, possibly the most unhinged character, and I mean that so endearingly. She's extremely quirky and offers another level of comedy to the show that's main focus was to be more comedic than usual, often delivering the biggest laughs and the best episode-to-episode bits. So while there is a bit of the classic Daphne there, mainly visually, she really gets to stand out in the series by changing things up a lot more than usual. Now, as far as Velma, the show truly plays up her character as this ultra nerdier and often grosser version of who she originally was. She rarely is as overly in-your-face smart about everything like she's been in the past, whether it was in a neutral way or more of a snarky way, as she is kind of just there and helps out and feels like she's running at 15% effort for most things. And when we do spend more time with her character, we see who she is shine based on how much she cares and values her friends, even at the detriment of her own passions in life. Maybe we need to spend more time with Velma one day. Maybe, I don't know, like a show just based solely on her. And maybe just like make it nothing like Scooby-Doo, you know? Nah, I don't think that'll ever happen.
Only the most foolish, reckless, self-destructive dope would even attempt to do this.
Anyway, the callbacks, the references, just the overall vibe of the show is truly something pretty special. It never takes itself too seriously, but I never felt it slipping into a territory where it goes too far with just being a random comedy that hurts rather than helps its established legacy. In fact, I think it quite respects where the franchise came from and has fun with the tropes we all know and love from the series. While it doesn't top my personal list of Scooby-Doo shows, it is a very nice refresh for such a well-recognized property. A property that you can do many different things with if the iterations have taught you anything. You can make it dark, you can make it funny. Scooby-Doo doesn't just have to fit into one mold, one style, which I think is kind of the beauty of how Scooby-Doo has evolved since its conception. And to add on to that, if this wasn't for you, Scooby-Doo has constant refreshes and style changes, tonality shifts, and plenty of other avenues already out there that may suit your interests. And I'm sure plenty more to come. But in the end, the show had a pretty rocky relationship with the network, ultimately leading to a harder way to watch the show, which is odd since you'd think Scooby-Doo as a property would be given some sort of extra spotlight, even if it was at its worst, which Be Cool is certainly nowhere close to that. So then, what happened?
Next, it's more Be Cool Scooby-Doo.
I'm Scooby-Doo! I'm sweet and loyal and the best friend in the world!
The show ended up premiering 20 episodes from October 5th, 2015 to March 12th, 2016, and then it disappeared, which was extremely odd since that wasn't even the full run of the first season, with 6 episodes left unaired at the time. Were the viewership numbers not good enough? Maybe to the network standards, but the majority of episodes were pulling in over 1 million eyes per episode. Perhaps it was due to a lot of behind-the-scenes issues dealing with episodes that had to have been rewritten, or executives not sure of what direction they truly want to take the franchise in, or dealing with any current backlash of the look of the show all playing a part into this decision. Plus, the time slot being adjusted not in the show's favor is usually not a good sign of faith in the show from the network. But then, over a year later, now in late June of 2017, the final 6 episodes of the first season ended up premiering, which should sound like a win. The only problem with that being that all 6 episodes were released back to back to back on Cartoon Network's sister channel, Boomerang, from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning, depending on your time zone. Yeah, the literal graveyard slots where the majority of the show's fans wouldn't be awake to watch it. It was on a different network than before, and it has been over a year since the last episode. But somehow, through the miracle of, hey, stranger things have happened, the second season of the show would come to fruition into the back half of 2017, where the first 15 episodes of the second season were released sporadically between Boomerang's video-on-demand service and graveyard slots on the Boomerang channel, minus the Halloween episode, which was included on the Happy Halloween Scooby-Doo DVD a bit earlier. But this whole release was messy, considering in other countries the entirety of Season 2 had already been released and shown off months earlier than the US would premiere them. The final 11 episodes left would eventually premiere individually on Boomerang's channel in March of 2018, where the series finale would be released on March 18th of that same year. It was also the only episode that had 2 11-minute segments for some reason, but maybe it was a test, because while this was the end of the series in general, and despite all of that whole mess we just went over, there was potentially a chance for a season 3 for the show, but there was still clashing behind the scenes, and even if there were to be more in this series, how would it have been treated anyway? I think based on the final episode and how every other cartoon for the most part followed the 2-segment formula, we would have seen the show become a lot smaller in scope, quicker with the stories and packed more with the comedy, but alas, this iteration of the show was cancelled. I can't even say it ran a good course because it barely was given a fighting chance. The ratings and viewerships weren't justified enough for the network to give it some more time, sadly. I think this show works both as a standalone show in its own right and as a nice palate cleanser to Mystery Incorporated to go from something so dark to something so the opposite. I mean that in the best of ways for both shows. I honestly do think this version of Scooby-Doo is worth the revisit. If you're craving some fun adventures with some meddling kids and their dog, this surely will give that to you with a slightly new twist on familiar friends. Be Cool Scooby-Doo deserved better and in my opinion is pretty underrated. If you have seen this version of Scooby-Doo, let me know your thoughts on it as well as what's your favorite version of Scooby-Doo. Tell me in the comments. Expect more Scooby-Doo later this year. Thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Later.